It was Valentine's Day, 2017. I was a college junior at the time, living alone in this old Victorian-style house I'd rented for dirt cheap. The kind of house that looks charming during the day, but at night feels like it's quietly remembering things. Tall ceilings, long hallways, wood floors that sighed when you walked across them. My boyfriend was out of town for a basketball tournament, so I decided I'd turn the night into something relaxing. A little self-care, wine, face mask, a horror movie I'd seen a dozen times before. Around 10 p.m., while I was halfway through my second glass, I heard it. Thud, thud, thud. It came from the ceiling, slow, rhythmic, almost deliberate. I muted the TV and listened. Nothing. I told myself it was old pipes, or the house settling. Old houses make noises. That's what everyone says. But then I smelled it. A strong artificial floral scent. Roses, cheap roses, the kind that come from a dollar store bouquet. I froze. I hadn't bought flowers. No one had been over. The doors were locked. The smell grew stronger. I stood up slowly, heart pounding harder with every step toward the kitchen. And that's when I saw it. On my kitchen table, under the dim yellow light, sat a single wilted red rose. Next to it, a heart-shaped box of chocolates. The lid was already open. Half of the chocolates had been bitten into, chewed, and spat back out onto the table, like someone had sampled each one and rejected them. There was a folded piece of paper beside the mess. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped it. It read, "You look so much prettier when you're sleeping." I didn't scream. I didn't call a friend. I didn't try to search the house. Something deep in my body, something primal, told me to run. I grabbed my keys, didn't even put on shoes, and ran out the front door in my pajamas. I didn't stop until I was locked inside my car. That's when I called the police. I remember staring at the house while I waited, the upstairs windows dark and still. But I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching me. From one of them. When the officers arrived, they cleared the house room by room. Everything looked normal, until one of them noticed something strange in the attic access panel. There was a faint scuff mark around the latch, like it had been opened recently. They climbed up, and that's where they found it. A small crawl space carved between the beams, a sleeping bag, empty food wrappers, several weeks' worth of my trash, and worst of all, a small drilled hole in the attic floor, directly above my bed, perfectly positioned, a viewing hole. He'd been living up there for 3 weeks, listening to me, watching me sleep, waiting. The rose wasn't a random act. It was an introduction. He was finally ready to say hello. Richard Schuch loved Valentine's Day. He was the kind of man who spent an hour picking out the perfect card, reading every message carefully, making sure the words matched exactly how he felt. In 2010, his wife, Stacy, suggested something different. Instead of a crowded restaurant, she proposed they meet at Belton Bridge Park first. A quiet spot by the river. Just the two of them. Exchange cards in private before dinner. It sounded romantic, like something out of a movie. Richard arrived first. The park was pitch black, the only light cutting through the darkness coming from his truck's headlights. The river nearby moved slow and heavy, barely visible. Cold air. No other cars, no witnesses. He stepped out of his truck, Valentine's card in hand. He checked his phone, a text from Stacy. "Almost there." He smiled, then he heard it. Footsteps, crunching softly over gravel. He looked up, expecting to see her silhouette. Instead, a man stepped out from the darkness. No greeting, no warning, just the flash of a gun. 5 shots rang out into the night. Richard fell backward onto the cold dirt, still gripping the Valentines card. He never even had the chance to open it. The man disappeared into the trees as quickly as he'd appeared. When police later pieced everything together, the horror became something far worse than a random ambush. Stacy hadn't stumbled upon the body in shock. She had planned every detail. She had hired a man known only as Mr. Results. She had lured her husband to that exact spot, while Richard lay bleeding beside the river, clutching a card that promised love forever. Stacy was miles away, watching her phone, waiting, expecting a text that would confirm the job was finished. Happy Valentine's Day. Instead, what she received was a lifetime sentence. Now she spends her days in a concrete cell. No roses, no cards, just walls. And the memory of the night she turned Valentine's Day into an execution. I worked the graveyard shift at a 24-hour diner in a small rural town. Valentine's Day is busy, until it isn't. By 2:30 a.m., the couples are gone. The lights feel harsher. The silence stretches longer. At exactly 3:15 a.m., the bell above the door chimed. I looked up. A man stepped inside. He was wearing a suit that looked at least 50 years out of style. Wide lapels, faded fabric, slightly too big for him. In his hand, he carried a massive bouquet of dried lilies. Not just wilted, dead, completely brittle. He didn't look at me. He walked slowly to the back booth, the one furthest from the windows, and sat down across from an empty seat. Then he placed the bouquet carefully on the table, like he was presenting it to someone. I approached with my notepad. He smiled faintly. 2 coffees, he said. I poured them. When I brought them over, he was already talking, laughing, nodding, responding to someone who wasn't there. He lifted a forkful of pie, held it out into the air, and paused. Open up, he whispered softly. I felt my stomach tighten. The air in that booth felt wrong, cold, sharp, like stepping into a freezer. He looked up at me suddenly. His eyes were bloodshot, not irritated, but deeply red, veins thick and dark. She loves the Valentine's surprise, doesn't she? He asked. I forced a nervous laugh. Who? I said. He slowly turned and pointed to the empty seat. My wife, he replied. It's our anniversary. We come here every year, ever since the accident. I didn't ask, what accident? I walked back to the kitchen and told my manager we had a problem customer. We were gone maybe 30 seconds. When we came back out, the booth was empty. No man, no bouquet, no footsteps toward the door. Just 2 cups of coffee sitting across from each other. One was steaming hot. The other was frozen solid. A thin layer of ice covered the surface, and suspended in the center, floating quietly beneath the ice, was a single fresh human tooth. No blood, no explanation, just that. We checked the security cameras later. At 3:15 a.m., the door never opened, and no one walked in. The booth had always been empty. But if you work that shift long enough, on Valentine's night, at exactly 3:15 a.m., you can sometimes hear a man laughing softly in the back booth, and the smell of dead lilies drifts through the diner.